Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zenker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker, and I'm your host. We're always looking for creative entrepreneurs, business leaders, and just anyone who has a passion for working smarter. And for sure, today's guest is going to open up our mindset and give us some real strategies in terms of delegation, which is a really important skill that we all need to practice. So we're going to be excited today. Yaro Starak is with us, and he's the co-founder of inboxdone.com. It's an email management company that's probably out of all of the experience that he's had through 30 plus angel investment tech startups that he's been included as part of, as well as starting and selling his own multi-million dollar business. And so when you're growing businesses, you need to learn pretty quickly how to delegate. So Yaro, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Penny. Yeah, looking forward to talking about the delegations. It's always a tricky topic.
It is, right? And so let's start right there. Is what makes delegation, in your opinion, and from your experience, what makes it so difficult?
Well, there's so many layers to it. Like I think for most entrepreneurs, especially the small business owners out there, the initial challenge is the letting go and believing other people can do things as well as you can, or possibly even better, which most people think that'd be a miracle. And if you get past that, it's a hiring job. And I know from my own experience, I failed at hiring over and over again, which meant that I was spending time on hiring when I was taking me away from doing the things. So I was kind of getting even less productive in order to get productive by delegating in the first place. So those to me, the two main things: letting go, understanding that there are other people out there who can do things for you, and then hiring the right people. And maybe the third thing is obviously having the financial capabilities and seeing an ROI from what you get when you do delegate. And then that kind of ties into what you delegate first, because you can delegate all day, but if you don't delegate the right things in the right order, you're not necessarily making any money back.
Absolutely. All great points. And I think that's the way we'll organize the show today into those three segments. And so you probably saw my face when you said letting go. Like that is so key. And I tell everybody, we're all control freaks, right? It's you, it's me, it's everybody who's listening. And so we have to understand that. And that part of letting go, I think, is way underestimated, because every area of our life, if we learn how to let go, we can have better relationships, right? We can have more productivity by delegating, but also it can create more resilience and just so much in our life. Learning the art of letting go is so powerful. So I'd like to hear from your experience. Like, what was the moment that you got it? Was it like you hit rock bottom? Because sometimes it has to happen that way. Did you learn a best practice? Like, what was your aha moment that made you break through and allowed you to let go?
It definitely wasn't like a rock bottom experience. I wanted to have my own business. Even as a teenager, I was looking for freedom. And it's a bit of a dichotomy, I guess, where as an entrepreneur, you're looking for independence. Therefore, you want to do everything yourself. So then when you go to bring on other people, it goes against your rules of independence, because suddenly you have to rely on other people to do things. So you're not so independent. So I think I kind of juggled between those two things. So started off as a solo entrepreneur. Just that for me, that was good timing. I was 18 when the internet was doing its first .com boom in the late 90s. So I built a website, and then that was more of a hobby. I did make a little bit of money. It was a card game online store as a teenager and then in university. But then my first real business, I call it, it was like an essay editing and thesis editing service, like a marketplace where I connected the freelance contract editors with university students. And that was a business where I really did go, okay, I got it to a certain point myself. I actually built the website myself. I put up posters on campuses myself to try and get customers. I started doing, basic search engine optimization myself, but I kind of realized I was doing most of these tasks not professionally, certainly not at a high skill level. I wasn't good at everything. I wasn't a web designer. I could walk around campuses and put up posters. That's not too hard. But I certainly wasn't a search engine optimization expert by any means.
Right.
So I was kind of doing everything badly. And that's when I started to realize, okay, I need to get good at one thing, become a specialist in an area. And in order for that to happen, I need to get rid of these other things off my plate. And I didn't come up with that idea. I'll be completely frank. I read the E-Myth Revisited and early on, and I read books on small business, and they kept talking about systems, people, and working on the business, not in the business, moving from technician to manager, all the way to owner and investor and so on. So I knew that had to be done. It just was A, getting the money to do it, and B, believing and finding the right people that it could happen. So I did it slowly. The short answer is the first thing I ever did outsource was that web design job. And that was the easiest thing to hand over because I was not a coder and I was just pulling my hair out trying to make HTML work and make things line up properly. So I was kind of happy to actually hand over that task, but that was where it all kind of started.
Right. I like what you said, and I think a lot of people can relate, is that we get to a point where we realize we're doing a lot, but not really getting anywhere with all the work that we're doing, right? And it's like, I really should be getting better results in all these areas, but I'm really just a hack in all these different areas. So I think that is a point of realization. It's not rock bottom, but it is definitely that point of realization is I could be much further. I could do so much more, and I'm only holding myself back.
Yeah,
right?
You're the roadblock. Yeah.
Yeah. And getting to that space. So you mentioned earlier that possibly having someone do it better, right? That you become a specialist in one area and get specialists in other areas. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think it's important that sometimes people think they're good at something. Like I used to develop some flyers and things like that. And I thought, I'm pretty good at this. And then I remember I thought, just for fun, I'm going to go and I'm going to have someone else do one just to compare them, to see and prove to myself that I'm better, right? Mm-hmm. And it was crazy how much better theirs was. And of course, I could take some of the ideas that I have and I could pass it over to that person. But I was blown away by the cost benefit of theirs was better, and it cost them a lot less time. And that allowed me and freed up my time, because I spent enormous amount of time on all the little details and things. Because like you said, I wasn't a specialist. Did you find that too? Like, what was your experience with that?
Yeah, spot on. I exactly the same kind of experience. Maybe I wasn't like you in the sense that I thought I could do everything as well as a specialist could. I was very well aware that one thing you think you're really good at, but then I wasn't the best web designer. I knew I wasn't necessarily the best copywriter. I was getting better by doing all these things, but I could tell, like you said before, it was my main constraint. It was me, which is really kind of annoying when you feel like you're the one holding everything back. So I really started to feel the difference when I hired the website designer person. So that was stress release too. You get like a technical problem with your website. I don't think I'll figure out what's wrong. I just pass it on to this person whose job it is to know how to fix this. So that was probably a bigger benefit, not even just necessarily the best person doing it, just the mental relief of knowing that's not my job anymore. Right. So that was huge. And actually, it kind of comes full circle because I work with them and then I work with a copywriter to kind of review my entire website. And that made a lot of sense. It helped improve my sales, the way we sold the actual service in that case. And then the last step in the piece was customer service, basically, because I was still the one answering all the questions anytime there were queries coming in. And that business was a really pronounced problem because, as you can imagine, students, they write essays, they're very last minute, they need it back the next day. And I had to make sure that we could find an editor in our team to get it back in time. So I had to basically be on email 24/7 in case a deadline was really tight to make sure we wouldn't miss a job. So I was like, okay, if I want this so-called freedom, that was my goal. I wasn't necessarily multi-million-dollar venture capital-backed company. It was a lifestyle business that I could travel the world with and have freedom. So if I'm stuck on email, stuck doing website design, stuck doing customer service, then I'm not free. So for me, finally, and this was the hardest jump because that was the role I was doing the most. I was in the inbox. I was selling my service. I cared about it more than anyone else. I didn't think anyone else could sell it the way I could sell it, or they wouldn't reply fast enough or the way I'd like them to. So it took a while. Like I actually hired a stay-at-home mom friend who was about to have her first baby. It was kind of like a good fit for her working situation. And then I attempted to hand over this thing that I thought, I'm not even sure would work, really. Can I get someone else to do email? And that's where I probably was like you with the brochure. I really thought I was the specialist and no one else could do it as well as me. I handed it over and it took about a month really to actually teach her how to do everything and then let her run with it herself. But I remember waking up on a Monday and my customer service was done. So my inbox was empty. Anytime website problems or changes came through, the customer service email person sends it direct to the webmaster. So I'm not part of that communication at all. Same with working with the contractors for any job, whether it was the editing of the service, graphic design, copywriting. So I'm suddenly out of the loop, which was the ultimate goal, no longer being that choke point in the business. I had created this sort of delegated team that were doing all these tasks and taking me out of that. That was a pretty special moment. I mean, it wasn't a huge business. It paid me a good salary, but it was fairly automated by that point. It took about 4 or 5 years to really get there, but that was the end result.
It does take time. I think that's also something to point out for people who are listening. And it's not just take time to get all the pieces together. First, it takes time to come to the acceptance and realization that we're going to give it away, right? And then to actually give it away because we try to hold back certain pieces. And then finding the right people, which you said was the second part, was the hiring.
Yeah. And the cash flow, like, let's face it, I couldn't hire day one. I didn't have enough income coming in too. So you have to kind of grow and then grow your team and balance that spending money to make more money equation.
For sure. However, I challenge you there because whenever I have clients, people that I'm working with, you say, I don't have the money, right? Because that's always the first answer is before they recognize that they're really the bottleneck or I don't have the money to do this. But there are interns, there are barter programs. I think the very first thing is recognizing you need to do it. And when you know you need to do it bad enough, I'm hoping that people are like me and they'll find a way, right? And there's always a way.
And it goes back to the mindset of letting go, because you're quite right. When I first hired the website person, I was thinking, actually, I'd rather keep the $1,000 a month that I had to pay them. I'll keep figuring this out, but I'll get to keep the $1,000. Then I was like, okay, but if I take the, whatever it was, 25 hours a week I'm spending on the website, give them $1,000, can I then go and double our client base? So I actually make $2,000 extra. So it actually equates to more. But in your mind, you have sort of that scarcity fear mentality, which takes a bit of practice to get over.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? It's getting past that scarcity mentality. I always tell people to value their time. What would that time be worth if you were spending it in your best area, whatever that is? For some people, it might be in the development, right? They might be better off hiring a salesperson because they love doing the development. I have somebody that I work with who is that person, and that's awesome. But knowing where your greatest value is and what the value of your time is helps you also to say, you know what, I could get an admin assistant or someone to go through this or to create these invoices or proposals or whatever it is. And that would only cost me $25 an hour, where if I was out there selling, it would be worth hundreds per hour, thousands per hour.
Right.
So absolutely. I think that's an important point. So let's move to hiring a little bit. So once we've gotten there and we say, okay, we're willing to let it go. We've got some clear, specific definitions of what we're ready to let go of. What are some tricks with the hiring process? Because that can be really, I've gone through myself. I've gone through people that didn't work and it's frustrating. And sometimes it makes you want to give up and say, I'm not going to delegate this anymore.
Yeah, it is probably my greatest weakness. It's the irony of like running a staffing solution company now because I was solving my own problems, right?
Right.
I mean, if you fast forward many years from the story I was sharing to my next business, I was in the blogging and podcasting space, selling online courses. And that business had grown to the point where I did have a team. So I had a couple of websites, several people doing like the email and customer service, but I still needed to keep hiring for certain roles, whether it was like a video editor, email writer. And I kept noticing that I knew I needed to fill these roles, but I'd go and try and find like A players. Like that's ultimately what I knew I needed. I needed really good people in this position because that would free me up to not just do that role, but not have to check in whether they're doing that role well. Yeah. That was my goal, right? Because you can spend just as much time editing and cleaning up someone's work as you do creating it yourself. So I found myself in this bizarre situation where over about 12 months, I hired 10 virtual assistants from the Philippines, not 10 at once. One came and then left, and another one came, another one left. And super frustrating. And I went through like an agency that found me options. I directly tried sites like Upwork and Fiverr. I went to my referral network, which had in the past worked so well for me. That's usually how I found like my web designers and so on. But even the referral network, I kept finding people like with weird stories. My grandmother, there was a house and a tree fell on it. So I had to go help her. I can't work this week and all these stories. And I just was like, okay, there's some kind of blockage here. I'm doing something wrong. So I realized I need to get out of the hiring role. So the irony for me was I need to delegate hiring, which delegates the delegation process, basically. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I got to find one good person. They will be my hiring manager. So that's when I, again, used my referral network, found a good person. And I said, your job is to basically become great at hiring. I know you may not be great now. You're good at attention to detail. You came well recommended for emotional empathy, communication skill. And now we're going to build a system for hiring because I know I'm not doing a good job of that. Her name was Laura. I actually still work with her today. And she was great because she stepped in and said, okay, I know it's not going to be like a quick solution, but we're going to build a system. And the first thing we did was create like a proper jobs page on the website that I had for that business. And it wasn't just like the details of the jobs we need to fill. It was what's the culture of our company? What's the growth path for you to work with us? Pictures of people who currently work with us. And what's our mission? Just really selling the organization you're going to work with. Then creating an actual like multi-step questionnaire testing kind of process that they complete before they even reach the point where they actually talk to us directly. This kind of like put up all these barriers to keep the low-level quality people away, kept the better people like top of the pile in terms of the applications. So then we were only speaking to a small percentage of already pre-qualified people.
Right.
And then Laura would take over with like a hiring and testing process from there, depending on what role it was for. It wasn't foolproof, but it certainly got us a much higher quality candidate. And we were able to fill roles more quickly too, because we could then, for example, just go to my own newsletter. I had an email list of people who followed my work, and I would say, we have jobs available. And that became actually the best recruitment source because they already kind of followed me. They liked my work. But then we had these open positions. We had a detailed process. So that was huge. But really, the best step was delegating the process of hiring. That's number one tip for me.
That's good, right? A lot of people feel like that's something they have to do themselves. And the truth is that they don't, right?
Nope.
We're best doing the things that we're best at.
And I was definitely not best at that. So.
Right. So that's a really great point. And I want to highlight some of the things that you did there that made that process easier. A, you delegated to someone else. But in your system that you mentioned, you had what I call, and I learned from one of my mentors, you create an ordeal, like something, a hoop that someone had to jump through that acts as some qualification elements so that by the time that people get to actually meet with someone in your organization, they've already been pre-qualified. That's so important. I mean, that's important not just for hiring, it's important for sales too, right? Is that you're really talking to and spending your time with the people who are ready to move, either ready to move into your organization or move with a sale. So I think that's a super important thing there. Any tip that you want to give people on that aspect of qualification?
For us, there's a few sides of this. There's obviously going to the right pool of talent. So I was fortunate in the sense that I had this database already, an audience that followed my work from years of writing a blog and being a content creator. I still relied on referrals as well, sharing it on social media. So your social following will see it, all these sources of talent, and not like going to Upwork first or Fiverr first. I actually found those are our last resort. Laura would often say that we've tried everything else. Now we're going into Fiverr and Upwork and, all the online marketplaces. So sourcing for us, making sure the career path is there for people. It's hard for me because I've never been an employee or a contractor working for someone else. So I always struggle to understand the motives and the incentives. I don't even understand why people want to work for other people. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So for me, it was always hard to understand how to even pitch this growth potential within an organization, especially a small one like mine. I was a niche content creator. So we have to highlight the lifestyle and the kind of business I had created because that was a desirable thing to learn about in the team that would come work for us. Maybe they were a bit entrepreneurial, but they wanted to learn more about it from a person who'd done it like me. They might work with us for 3, 4, 5 years and then start their own thing, or it could be a side hustle. So it was finding that alignment of what incentivized them was important as well. Besides that, really, I still think the sourcing and the vetting process has been the biggest. It's funny now because even with my current company Inbox Done, really the whole reason to even hire a company like ours is because we do the hiring and the vetting and the testing process. Because you don't want to do that yourself and you just want to go and get a pool of talent. It's why you're willing to pay the premium per hour fee that you basically do for that. And we have a 10-step hiring process now, not that I run it. Obviously, I'd be terrible at
Right.
it, but my co-founder, Claire, created it. She actually worked with Laura as a starting point, took that system that we had in my other company, brought it across for hiring these inbox assistants. And it's been interesting because she went like 2 or 3 levels more. It's not just a survey. It's like, here's some example emails. How would you reply to them? A little bit more about even some things I would never have thought of, like where do you lean in terms of what type of city do you live in, more liberal, more conservative? Because a lot of this tends to matter when you're working with a client, because there could be clashes if I'm Democrat and I'm Republican, and I just idealism like that. And we don't want to make that a reason not to hire someone or to hire someone, but it certainly makes things smoother when it comes to placing a client with a contractor, for example. So all these subtle things that you learn over time, emotional empathy, attention to detail, there's ways to test for that. You can determine so that when you finally reach the point where you're actually talking to someone in an interview, you already know so much about them that now you're almost just confirming that they are what they've said they are through that testing process. And maybe as a final thing, and this was always the dream for me, we never did it for my coaching teaching business, so we do have Inbox done. Claire, my co-founder, actually created an entire course. So new hires basically get taught through something they would, normally pay for, that Claire created because she was the first ever inbox manager for us.
Right.
So yeah, it's like the perfect kind of way to finish the whole recruiting process. Now we're upskilling you to get you ready for a client. Now I wish every role you could do that. And I think in most companies where they're doing something unique should have something like that, just to give that really unique insight into what makes them special.
I'm interested in hearing about Inbox Done in a couple minutes.
Sure.
Let's just shift to the ROI side. And maybe that brings us really naturally into that, right? I could hire someone myself. They could be part of my team and they could be looking and hiring. But many organizations just aren't big enough and don't hire that often to have somebody do that on a regular basis. But I do want to get 1 or 2 good people, maybe once every 6 months or something like that. And so tell me, like a tip around the ROI side, outside of what we already said, by valuing your time and comparing it to the time of somebody.
Sure. I went through this more so in the earlier phases when, yes, I was still feeling that fear around spending money and I'd rather keep the money. But once I'd gotten over that, then I realized, okay, I need to do a proper 80-20 assessment. I think most people now know about the 80-20 rule. You're looking for the few things that make the biggest impact. I did that, but I also was looking at my goals. Like, what am I trying to do here? Where's the problem? I love the theory of constraints. For those listening in, if they've heard of that concept, it came from Toyota and their manufacturing process. They look for the weakest link. If they can increase capacity there, it passes on that increase across the entire system. So I would always do that. I'd go, okay, what is the weakest link in this company that I'm trying to grow right now? And then tie that into 80-20 rule. So where's the weakest link? And what change within this weakest link would cause the most large increase in improvement? So basically, what do I need to do better? And what part of that should I be hiring for right now? That's kind of like how I determined what to hire next. And that ties into ROI, because the whole idea here is those things are all about increasing sales or capacity or whatever is holding you back. But it's not always like just sales and marketing. Often we think that's the problem. Not enough leads. So I need to hire a salesperson, inbound, pay-per-click marketer, whatever it is, something to get more customers. And that's certainly important. But then you sometimes realize, well, the reason we can't necessarily ramp that part up is we don't have capacity to onboard new clients, or maybe there's an aspect of our software or our product that if it suddenly was in the hands of a lot more people, it would actually start to break. So all these parts that could be constraints to growth, they're just not directly related to sales. So in that case, it's like, okay, I need another engineer because we need to fix all these bugs to get ready to do the sales part. So that's where I would hire next. And that would tie into ROI. So, to bring it back to my own story, I knew once I'd placed basics, website person, customer service person, did the copywriter. And a lot of that is fractional too. Like, I'm not hiring on a full-time basis. Like you said, I'd hire someone, they do the copywriting, they'd leave. So I wouldn't be paying an ongoing $2,000 a month kind of thing. It'd be like maybe $2,000 one time and it's done. And then finally I could say, okay, where are the real growth buttons I could press if I just brought in this one person? It might be on an ongoing basis. It might be a 6-month contract. And that's when I would just say, okay, you know what? Take a case in point right now. I've been running the Google ads for my company, but I've reached the point where it's like time to bring in the specialist. I've maxed out the point where I want to bring my skill set to. So it's like, okay, but do we need to bring one on forever? Probably not. We'll bring someone in, we'll pay them $2,000 or $3,000. They might spend 3 months just watching everything, improving it, tweaking it, but then they'll step away and it can keep running. And that to me is the obvious ROI, because we get better with the AdWords, we get more customers. All we need is really one customer a month and we get our money back. So I like to think of it that way, look for the constraint and then hire from that point.
Absolutely. I really like that. And I want to highlight something you said, because I come across that all the time, where people think, oh, I need to invest in sales. It's always their first go-to is we need to generate more sales, more leads, more clicks, more always on the front end. And they're not necessarily realizing that they might be I had this one client who was focusing, got to make more sales. And we said, okay, well, let's step back a second. Like you said, let's look at where the bottlenecks, what's working and what's not working. Let's look at your numbers. What's your attrition rate? Like hell trying to get new customers in, but are they staying? And then we found out, whoa, they're not staying. 85% are flying out the door. Well, no wonder you're working so hard. So maybe you need to hire someone or to do something around customer loyalty. You can keep more of the customers you already have, and then you don't have to work as hard, right? So people need to slow down, right? Yeah. That's part of, I think, also what delegation makes you do is it makes you slow down, step back and look at, like you said, where are the deficiencies? What would break if you were to scale it really fast? And where are you driving yourself crazy? Where is it stressing you out? And those types of things. And through that analysis, you find out what to delegate. You have to prepare yourself for the delegation. And it's time well spent. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And I think you highlight the insidious nature of this, because whatever is a coach, an agency, any kind of service provider, like you said, it's more customers. But then you don't realize when you do get more customers, all the things you do suddenly magnify. So if you don't actually have systems in place and if you haven't delegated roles, one new client might magnify like double all these other jobs you do. So you went from a 10-hour a week to a 20-hour a week. 2 new clients takes you from 20 to 30. And it doesn't take long for your capacity to be completely maxed out, despite the fact you haven't really grown your business very much as well. So like you said, you need to almost let's get the system here. So when I do ramp up sales, we do get a lot of clients. It doesn't break everything. I don't get stressed out, burnt out, sick, unwell. Right. And then there's no point getting new clients. And that's a vicious cycle. I've seen a lot of my friends who run, especially kind of service-based businesses, where they have to keep switching from marketing and then service delivery and stop the marketing because they can't do both at the same time. And they feel like they're on a kind of like a treadmill. It just doesn't go anywhere.
For sure. But it's product companies too. Like I've worked with companies that were selling different types of products. That company I was talking about was a magazine, and they were selling ads, right? So it's not really a service business. I've had some manufacturing companies where leads and sales were coming in, but they couldn't process them, right? So their systems broke and they couldn't process them. So, and then they were pissing people off and they didn't have the customer service. So many other places to look at. So I really like your approach in that. So tell me about Inbox Done. Tell me how that can make my life easier.
Well, it was born from wanting to make my life easier and more simple too. So it's a pretty standard story. I think we all know people who they show your phone and you open up the email and it's like 20,000 emails. And I don't know if they're proud of that or, how successful I am. Yeah.
Right.
So it came about because I was the first customer. I had to break free to do email and travel the world without being trapped to the inbox. So I did it. But then to be honest, it didn't turn into a company. I just had people doing my email for the next 10 years, no matter what business I was running. And it was about 5 years ago where I'm at a networking event in Vancouver, and the woman next to me, she's talking about her business, and we're all saying, what are our biggest problems? And she says, well, I wake up in the morning and I open my phone, I do my email, and then I'm at work, and throughout the day, I'm just going back to my laptop and reading notifications and just constantly getting distracted and doing my email, go home, see the kids, family, put them to sleep, go back and do my email. So, and I said to her, I actually only do my email once a month. And she kind of looks at me and go, how is that even possible? Everything would completely break down. And I said, well, there's a person. In fact, at the time, there were 3 people who were in my inbox replying to all the emails that really don't need me to be replying to. Yes, there are a few that go into a Yaro folder and I deal with them once a month, but they're big high-level decisions or important meetings. All the kind of like questions and how do I access this resource? Can I upgrade? Can I get a refund? Cancellations, newsletter, software updates, all the things going into the inbox there. So that was kind of like the impetus to go, okay, I need to test and see if there's a company here, help to simplify other people's lives. And that's when I actually launched Inbox Done as an experiment. It wasn't a business yet. My co-founder, Claire, was one of my email assistants. I saw that she had leadership ability and I said, let's try and see if this works for other people. And we eventually circulated an announcement to my newsletter, as I always do, found a couple of clients as a test run there. And it was a really interesting test. It's like, A, does the system we use to break me free from email, does that apply to another business owner in a completely different industry? So like our first two clients, one was like a libertarian podcast coaching business, and the other one was like a dissociative disorder therapist type business. Very different from my blog coaching business. And thankfully, the system worked. Email, while the content's different, the way we work with is the same. So fast forward the last kind of 5 years, we've gone and built a team of 25 email executive assistants. Claire is my co-founder. She kind of built the hiring and training system. And like I said earlier, that's kind of the big thing we bring to the table. So people come to us with too much email. They're the owner of the business doing everything wrong, like you and I have talked about. They're the one who's still kind of sitting in the middle of the business. And their email is kind of like the to-do list. So they have to forward things between team members, get back a piece of content, make a decision. So by delegating the inbox, and when I say inbox, we do email, we do your direct messages and social. So if you're getting LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, so on, help desk, so customer support messages, basically anything where written communication is really important. We step in and take that over. So yeah, and it's turned out to be a lot of fun to run it, and surprising the diversity of entrepreneurs, from like real estate agents, doctors, candy store owner, venture capitalists, online coaches. Everyone has too many messages coming into all their inboxes. So we help people break free from.
So how many hours would, like, I know it varies depending on the business. And
Penny, how many hours do you spend in your inbox right now? Like, are you a regular daily email person, or?
I'm a daily email person, but not like a ton.
Not drowning?
I process things and I use systems. And so I don't have an email problem.
Okay, good.
Per se. But the reason I'm asking you this is also because I think there's a lot of people, like the typical entrepreneur, they can relate and they could say, okay, I could use that, right? I could use that service. Or maybe even like me, it's not a major issue, but maybe it could save me 2 hours a day or an hour a day. I mean, I'm probably not in there 2 hours, but maybe an hour a day, right? So like, do you provide a service that's an hour a day? It's also people that I work with in corporate that have they have way worse email issues than some of the entrepreneurs that I know, because they have more teams to communicate back and forth with. And I'm just curious, like, because I said to them, you're driving yourself crazy. You could get an admin assistant to do a few little things for you that could just make your life a little easier. So I'm just curious if you've seen also starting to see like executives and different project managers and things like that who are taking advantage of this service.
I actually think corporate are often in a better situation to benefit from this, because they already are used to working with a team of people, bringing on consultants, support services. They know the value of expertise and specialization. And in fact, sometimes we work with a corporate, like a C-suite person who has an executive assistant, and then we step in and work with both of them. So we kind of take email off the executive's plate and the assistant's plate, or we act as the executive assistant straight away. So short answer is definitely for C-suite. I think the best way to answer this, even someone like in your situation, is, when you're in your inbox, if it even is an hour a day or 2 hours a day, what would you do with the hour or the 2 hours a day? In fact, most of our clients were probably 2 hours a day. That's what we do for them. We free them up. But it's not just the time, it's that mental freedom as well. Absolutely. I don't need to worry about, did I miss an opportunity? Did I not get back to a client or an investor or my mom fast enough, whoever it might be in the inbox. So that kind of relief as well. And then obviously there's a chain of communication that's developed here too. So I just want to be clear,
for sure,
we're taking all the low level stuff off your plate, but you're still informed of all the high level stuff and you react to it how you best want to. But yeah, so we're fractional price. So we're month to month, no long-term contracts. Like I said, people will be from maybe an hour is like the smallest amount, all the way up to we're actually working with a team, maybe 3 or 4 people in their organization. And we can expand and shrink as well. But the sweet spot is usually one individual leader, professional type person who understands the value of getting that 2, maybe 3 hours back, because they want to write a book, or they want to travel, or they want to focus on creative growth tasks. in their company, or maybe exercise, get back to being healthy, see their family, all those things, whatever it would be, that 2 or 3 hours would free up. And it kind of ties into what you and I talked about right at the start. It's not something where you can necessarily go, oh, I hired this thing and we get an increase in sales. There's no direct ROI connection. No, sometimes there is.
Sometimes, right.
You might help answer a few questions that are actually sales related questions and get you a new customer.
Right.
But if you take all these tasks that are stopping you from doing the growth tasks off your plate because you're not reacting to your inbox like it's a to-do list that other people control, suddenly you're getting more done each day that actually is increasing your ROI. So that's the best way to think about it. Personally, I think the mental freedom is actually more important to me than directly seeing an ROI. It's the sense that, okay, I wake up, that inbox, which used to be the scary, frustrating place, is someone else's responsibility. They're in there 5 days a week. They're cleaning it out twice. It's inbox zero every day. I don't have to stress about it.
Right. And, you said the mental freedom. It's also the clarity, like going back and forth and constantly going in there creates like a fog of this task switching that's taxing us mentally. So I think that's what you're talking about. But there's also an additional like distraction that keeps us from being focused when we are doing other things. So
yeah, you got to go in there and always ask yourself, like, is it the best use of my time to do what's here? It's that 80-20 question again.
Right,
so
for sure.
I asked that from day one with, I shouldn't be the one doing the website. Then I shouldn't be the one answering customer support emails. I think all entrepreneurs have to kind of go through that process to delegate and grow. You kind of can't avoid it because you're only one person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, tell us, where do we go to sign up, to find out more information?
Yeah. Well, you've said the name many times, inboxdone.com. Click the book a discovery call. In fact, you'll probably get to speak to me. You can tell us a bit about whatever you're dealing with in terms of email, admin tasks, even if it is things like just sending invoices. We take over all that sort of thing, data entry, kind of like executive assistants that specialize in communication, and love to hear about what you'd like to hand over to us. It's always fun to kind of make that conversation happen so you can imagine, oh, I won't be doing this anymore and I won't be doing this anymore. And that's a lot of fun.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Penny.
And thank you all for being here. Now, I'll tell you, one of my favorite things every morning is to delegate something because I know it's going to make me more productive throughout the day. So I want you to check out, take a step back and see, could this be something that could save you some mental energy, give you back some time to do things for yourself, to spend it on sales, to really scale your business the way that you want to. So check it out, make a discovery call with Yaro, inbox done, and that's it. Just do it. And then you'll see, right? Take that step back and see what you can gain in terms of scaling. And if you're in corporate, it's the same thing, right? Could you benefit from this? Why not have a conversation? It's worth it. So my name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.